Good afternoon. I'm Maire Ullrich with Cornell Cooperative Extension in Orange County. I too am on the hemp team, and I'm going to address a little bit about risk and reward because, of course, the question this year is the reward of hemp, the potential for profit, balance out with the risk because those two things should be in direct proportion to one another, but they may not be. And so, has hemp been all rainbows and kittens, or is it a little wild westy? I've seen a lot of wild westy out there in the last couple of years, and so I'm going to address a couple of ways to protect yourself from the bad actors and other potential negatives that occur. So how is risk measured and mitigated? We use cost of production data. John mentioned that it's coming along, but the future market certainly is questionable. We certainly do need more interest from consumers to keep that price up, to keep the demand up. We also mitigate risk with crop insurance. I don't know what the payments, I haven't talked to anybody who signed up for crop insurance, and I mean the USDA FSA crop insurance. So I don't know what those payments are going to be for 2020. My prediction last year was that they were either going to be really good or really bad, and so we'll see what happens with them. I'm always curious to talk to people who've had insurance. So if you've had insurance, please give me a ring, because private or the federal government supported ones, I'd love that information. So, and also one way to protect yourself or to mitigate risk is to have a contract. And of course, with the 2018 Farm Bill going to be brought into effect in New York State by the end of the year, there's lots of changes in the landscape happening. And of course, we're not used to legislation changing so quickly around crops, but the last few years this has been quite a little roller coaster, so that in itself is a risk that you don't know where things are going to go legislatively. Of course, the big force majeure or the big risk is that FDA may decide to regulate the crop, particularly in the case of CBD, and that could have a huge impact on markets, production. If FDA said, no, this is a drug and everybody has to have, just like a drug, everybody has to have the same kind of testing and monitoring, then there would be a lot of producers and processors that would no longer have a market because they couldn't meet those requirements. And so the other thing I just want to say about contracts, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. And I'm going to show you a flyer in a minute that can help you out in terms of contracts. So what's the biggest thing that I see as a problem with hemp contracts or hemp relationships right now is that there's no collective knowledge. For produce, we have the Blue Book, so that people can go look up buyers in New York State. Buyers are bonded, so that if a seller doesn't get paid, they can go to the state and get reimbursed through that bonding process. If they really didn't get paid for something that they sold and everything was supposed to be okay, and the seller just didn't get their money, there's a way to get it back. But in hemp, that doesn't exist right now. And there's no institutional memory, which we should have, or we have in other businesses. Who is going to pay you, who the traditional bad actors are, the guys who pay in 30, 60, 90, and the ones who don't. If you don't know, your neighbors do, and so sharing information about that in other crops has been very open. In hemp it has not been. So even what little institutional memory is being gathered, it's not being shared. And so it seems like bad actors are going from farm to farm or from region to region and causing trouble. And certainly this isn't just about CBD. I've had it happen that folks selling grain came to me because they didn't get paid for their grain because the buyer said that it was moldy but didn't tell them it was moldy until like 3 months later. So there's no way to trace back whose fault that was. It was just very unfortunate. And so also very unusual relationships between value and cost, that the farmer needs to buy into the processing somehow, which is really, not the case. Ocean Spray, really doesn't need the farmers necessarily to buy into the processing part itself. They might be a co-op in terms of selling, but do they own the equipment? Maybe not. Or orange juice companies or any of those, there isn't that same kind of need to be involved. There's a lot of interest from people who have never been involved in agriculture. That can be a little bit of a problem. There's also what I call the billionaire rule. There's a lot of folks running around saying, oh, I have billionaire friends. Well, unless you see a picture of him with Warren Buffett, like on his Christmas card, don't believe it. So one of the local growers actually said if it's a good party, it'll still be going in a couple of years. And if it's a bad party, I never wanted to go in the first place. He said that when questioned about why, because he was going to grow and then changed his mind in the last minute in 19. And so just using caution. So to try and look more closely at some of those contract details, there's this 6-page pamphlet. The first 2 pages are about production stuff, but then the next 4 are about contracts. I wrote it with the assistance of several attorneys, agricultural attorneys. And so just have a look at that. It's on both the Cornell website and the hemp blog, which here's the pages. And so the blog is on the left. That's what it looks like. And so there's regular news updates there and updates for meetings and things like that. There's also the link for the contract thing. And on the right, don't forget that Cornell has its own website, and then the team, whether it's other people you've heard from today or John or Lindsay or myself, all of our contact information is also on there on the team website.